All right, first up is Katerine Briat's Fat Girl. So the reason this is first on the list is because it's probably the least disturbing. This was my introduction to Katerine as a filmmaker, and she did not disappoint. I ended up watching all of her films, and there's some really good ones, really intense ones, really disturbing ones in there. But this one for me is her masterpiece. It is about two young girls, 13 and 15, who go to a beachside place with their mother, and it's about their sort of burgeoning sexuality. The younger girl of the title, she seems a little bit more aware of her feelings and sexuality, and the older, more attractive sister just kind of dives in head first. And I think with the disturbing nature of the ending, I think what Briat was trying to say is there's a violence to it, not just a physical violence, obviously blood and things like that with menstruation, but there's a violence to a young woman coming of age and exploring her sexuality, whether it's the violence of the way a young man is going to take advantage or explore his own sexuality with her, or just the violent feelings in general that they feel. Now, I'm not a woman, so I can't comment deeper on that, but I think that's what she's trying to say, and it's powerful and it's poignant. You also get a sense of the loneliness of it all, like that these girls are kind of trapped in their own feelings and trapped in their own bodies. And the young girl of the title also, we get a sense of loneliness here, like a longing to connect and to explore her feelings and her body just as much as the older sister. And that kind of leads to the climactic and very disturbing ending. It just sort of lulls you to a sort of a calm place until the end, and it kind of jars you out of it. And it's powerful, it is disturbing, it is violent, and I loved it because of that. It just kind of sticks with you. And again, it made me love her as an artist, because those are the types of films and filmmakers that I seek out, artists that are willing to startle and excite you, that give you something powerful to think about, something powerful to feel, and everyone on this list has that. So Fat Girl, number one. All right, this next movie might be the most disturbing I've ever seen. It is hauntingly beautiful and vivid, and deeply, deeply disturbing, and not just for disturbing sake. I've not seen Serbian film, but it feels like that is made for disturbing sake. Let me come up with the most disturbing thing I can think of. But what Pier Paolo Pasolini was talking about in Salo is it's about fascism, and it's about the cruelty of the elite that have zero empathy for the rest of the classes. And I think that is his point, and it kind of sticks with you because of that. Now, all the disturbing stuff is deeply disturbing. It's also shot beautifully, but there's like a sickness to it. It feels sick. The people look sick. The color palette looks sick. The things that happen obviously are sick. That he's talking about, there's a sickness there to the ruling class. And that's what he's kind of getting at. And the plot is very simple. It's a bunch of ruling class elites in fascist Italy at the end of the World War II. And they sense their demise. So they take a bunch of teenagers up to this chateau and decide that they're going to do anything they want. They challenge each other to come up with sick and twisted and disturbing things, and challenge each other to kind of outdo one another with these horrible things. And you get a sense that, like, he was commenting on the state of the world and the ruling class, and it is so disturbing and so messed up. Like I said, I saw it once years ago, and I don't need to see it again because everything stays with you. These images, these moments, these performances, the content, the feeling, it's so gross feeling. But again, it's not without its merit and without, like, when you watch these disturbing films, by the end, it's got to be about something. Like, what was the filmmaker trying to say? And honestly, this is a very powerful film because of that. Like, it's, again, it's kind of like Harmony Korine, Lars von Trier, these people that make disturbing films are trying to make a comment about the wider world. And some people don't want to see it. Some people don't want to hear it. Some people don't want to know about the depravity that goes on in the world. But I think when the light is shined on it, it kind of helps you understand the world in which we live in. And this movie is one of those movies. Deeply disturbing. Again, I have no need to see it again. All right, next up is Gaspar Noé's Irreversible. This is another one that I struggled with. I really appreciate and respect his artistry as a filmmaker. He makes challenging movies. He really goes out on a limb, and he is a genuine artist. And this may be his masterpiece, honestly. The way it's shot is phenomenal, as you'll see here. Like, everything kind of flies through the air from scene to scene. Obviously, like the name suggests, it's all shot backwards. So from the final scene to the very first scene, it all goes backwards. Now, right at the beginning, it is very jarring and very violent and very explicit. And it kind of takes you out of the moment, because when something is so explicitly violent right off the bat with no context, you start thinking, oh, how did they shoot that? How did they get that? Is that a prosthetic? Is that real? What's going on? So that kind of took me out immediately. The artistry brought me back in, and the storytelling brought me back in. And it's worth seeing because of that. And then when it gets to the famous tunnel scene with Monica Bellucci, it is so relentless and disturbing, and I think kind of important for a moment like that. I'm not going to say what happens if you don't already know, but it is important to have it feel relentless, because you imagine that that's what he's trying to say about how the female felt in that scene. And so it's a very strong scene. And again, by the time we get to the end, we kind of see what the point was. But for me, my overall take, aside from the brilliance of it, the performances, the artistry, it is fantastic. As far as that stuff goes, I never got the sense that the violence was earned. I just didn't. The violence at the beginning kind of takes me out, and I just didn't think it was earned. I just thought that was unnecessary to tell this story, in my opinion. Again, I do think it's a masterpiece. I think he's a great artist. I just felt that the violence in that moment was not earned. And I don't mind violence, at all. But I just felt it was unearned. And that's my take on Irreversible. A great movie, very disturbing. Probably don't need to see it again. All right, so this next film, it might be the most viscerally disturbing of all of them, honestly. I just came across this a couple years ago. It is Martyrs by Pascal Laugier, I guess. Laugier. It is highly disturbing and just very, like I said, visceral. And this opening scene here, I included this because I wanted to show, this is the very definition of the banality of evil. It looks like an everyday family just doing normal things. And this, I'm just going to tell you briefly the plot. This young girl, knocks on the door with a shotgun and proceeds to kill the entire family. The kids included, and it is disturbing, and you're like, what is happening here? And then when we find out what's happening and why she did that, that's when the fun begins. Again, it's one of those films that if you can stomach it and sit through some of the harder moments, because this came at a time when torture porn was around, and that was kind of the big buzz and all that stuff. But there really is something to this. It's almost like he's commenting on the torture porn phenomenon too, because there does feel kind of like Salo, that why are these people doing this and what are they trying to achieve? And it does kind of get to something more insidious beneath the surface. But the unrelenting violence on the girls, that is what makes it so disturbing. The sounds, it's like I said, unrelenting. It just doesn't seem to end, the violence perpetrated against these girls, and it just never does. But again, I feel like there's something behind it. There is a meaning as to why the girls go through it and all that stuff. But again, very disturbing. I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where the violence was earned because he's trying to make a point with it, unlike Irreversible, in my opinion. So, Martyrs, one of the most viscerally disturbing films I've ever seen. Next up is, and I put this last because for me it is the most probably emotional disturbing. I think, if you want to call it that. This is from Harmony Korine, the screenwriter at 16 who wrote Kids, the famous Larry Clark movie, which I think is still a masterpiece. And then he went on to direct his own stuff, this being Gummo. Now, he's got a few films in this sort of category, like, I'm not going to call it poverty porn, but where he's sort of showing the extreme poverty in this country and these little small towns and the people that inhabit it, and it's deeply disturbing. He paints this sort of listless, aimless life where nobody has purpose, nobody has anything really to live for, and it gives you this sort of sickening feeling at the end where you want to take a shower. Like, you want to take a shower and you don't want to visit any small towns in America. The plot is, if I could call it that, right off the bat is disturbing. It's basically these two kids who, it's like, how do I phrase this? They want to have sex with this local girl who's known to be a slut, right? This kid's sister. And they have to get money to do it, to pay him. Oh, yeah, she's also retarded. And they hear that this kid is, like, killing cats. So they decide and selling them to the Chinese restaurant. So they decide they're going to use a BB gun and try to kill some cats, sell them to the Chinese restaurant, and make some money so they can pay this kid to have sex with his retarded sister. That is the plot. If that doesn't sound disturbing right off the bat, I don't know what does. And the imagery and the feeling that the film evokes does not disappoint. It's exactly that. It makes you feel so dirty and gross. These people that, like, there's an ignorance there. There's like I don't know the feeling. It's like you can't have a conversation with these people. You can't reason with these people. They're going to live these pointless, aimless, disturbing lives no matter what. And again, I think Harmony Korine is sort of making a comment on, extreme poverty. I think the town in the case of Gummo was like ravaged by a tornado, and there's just nothing there. No jobs, no nothing. And it's just dark, and like you leave it kind of feeling gross. Now, all this movie, Julien Donkey Boy, gives you the same feeling. I never saw Trash Humpers because I felt like I just had enough of his world. Now, that being said, I think he's a genius. I think that, what he's able to capture is artistry. There's something to these moments. He's able to direct these people in these moments that evokes a very specific and visceral feeling. And for that, I think, Harmony Korine is a gifted filmmaker and a talented artist. It's just not my cup of tea. Follow the channel for more stories, film critique, and my own personal experiences in Hollywood. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.